The noon sun beat down upon Sunspira like a forge hammer on glowing steel, and the air over the spear-shaped tower wavered in shimmering waves. Within the cool, shaded arches of the Shadow Palace, Ilaria Sand stood alone before a high, arched window, her fingers resting on the carved sandstone lattice, watching the courtyard below. Turquoise pools glittered, silk awnings stirred, and the few courtiers brave enough to venture out in the heat moved with languid grace. But all Ilaria saw was empty space, space where the vipers should have stood, laughing at the sun and daring it to scorch him harder. A gray dress clung to her body, darker where tears had fallen, though she had sworn she would shed no more. Yet, when a lone swallow dipped past the window, its wings cutting a V across the heaven-blue sky, she remembered the way Oberyn used to mimic birdsong for their daughters, and her vision blurred again. 10 days since the raven arrived. 10 days since the shutters of her heart slammed closed upon the words. The mountain crushed Prince Oberyn Martell's skull. Prince Doran Martell had summoned her an hour ago, and she had come without protest, though her knees trembled beneath silk. She brushed the back of her hand across her cheeks, took a breath scented with salt and hibiscus, and moved down the corridor. 2 gods in burnished copper kissed their spears and stepped aside. Beyond an ivory door inlaid with lapis, Doran waited alone, black-clad, enthroned beneath the coiled golden spear of House Martell. His face, full once, had hollowed further in the last 10 days, but his dark eyes remained unreadable pools. "Ilaria," he said, as though tasting the name for bitterness. "Shit." She sank onto a low cushion. Between them, a table of green glass held a decanter of blood-red wine, its color deep as the wound in her heart. Doran let the silence breathe, the quiet steady as a tide, until Ilaria's grief-tightened chest loosened. "At first," he said at last, "I thought to reply with words. A letter to Tywin Lannister, couched poison, promises of slow justice. But ravens bear no weight. The lion rules as though the Reach were his orchard and the Riverlands his fish pond. He will not fear ink." Ilaria set her hands on the table's cool glass. "Our daughters, Oberyn's girls, shine with his blood. They deserve a father whole, not broken beneath a butcher. They deserve the Lannisters' heads on Dornish spears." "A spear must strike where it can pierce," Doran murmured. "Tywin sits in the Red Keep, smug in victory, nursing debts and grievances. The mountain lies dying of poison, Oberyn's venom even in death. But still, the realm rings with cheers for the lion's justice." Her voice trembled like a sand viper's tongue. "Will you let them cheer? Will you leave my lord cold in King's Landing earth?" Doran raised his eyes to the lattice that filtered the relentless sun. "I have waited long for the viper's moment. He moved too soon. Now I must move sooner." His gaze sharpened. "Go to the daughters. Tell them the spears of Dorne march at dawn." The water gardens, usually a lattice of children's laughter and splashing fountains, lay hushed beneath a twilight sky turned lavender and rose. Oberyn Sand stalked along a colonnade, a bladed spear over one shoulder, bronze breastplate strapped tight over desert leathers. Nymeria Sand drifted in her wake, silver eyes catching the fading light, hand resting on the braided whip that coiled her slender waist. Tyne, soft-voiced and all sweet curves, sat cross-legged upon a marble bench, polishing a pair of thin, shining daggers with loving care. When Ilaria entered, they rose as one. Oberyn's stare was hot as forge aflame. "Has my uncle found his courage?" "He has found his hour," Ilaria said. "In the morning, you ride north along the Boneway. Captain Balon Swan still holds Rainhouse, and will bar the narrow pass if given time. You must not give him time." Oberyn's grin bared teeth. "I'll leave his head for the vultures." Nymeria brushed a strand of dark hair behind one ear. The Blackmonts and Euronwoods roused. "Every banner between the Greenblood and the Prince's Pass," Ilaria said. "Prince Doran is sending word to the Stepstones. Ships have sailed from Plankytown and Gaston Grey, each sworn to strike at King's Landing's harbor under Prince Tristan's flag." Tyneen's lashes swept upward. "To strike the lion's throat, you must first still his claws. Lord Tywin will send ravens to every corner of the realm. We will need allies." Ilaria's breath escaped in a tremor. "Allies will come, because this time, my sweet girls, the Martells will not fight alone." Far north of the desert, King's Landing simmered in summer heat that turned the air in Fleabottom rank with rot and sweat. Sir Jaime Lannister rode through Mudgate astride honor, plate flashing in low sun, red cloak dragging. New straw had been spread to mask the smell of shit, but the stench of fear needed more than straw. Peasants whispered, clutching children, turning faces away. From the ramparts, he glimpsed banners drifting above towers, the crowned stag of King Tommen beside the lion of House Lannister, symbols meant to reassure a city that had learned to see portents in every flap of cloth. Top Maegor's hold fast, the throne room swallowed Jaime whole. Tywin Lannister stood on the steps to the Iron Throne, pale candlelight painting sharp planes on his face. He was dressed for court, but the room was empty, and the swords of fallen enemies behind him glimmered like frozen lightning. "Ravens from the south," Tywin said as Jaime approached. "The Prince of Dorne has declared Oberyn's death murder under guest right and swears retribution. Sunspear rises, the stepstones burn with Dornish sails. My little brother's vanity duel may cost us a kingdom." Jaime rested his golden hand upon the pommel of his sword, though he scarcely felt the steel. It was the mountain's hand that crushed the viper's skull, not ours. Words for a bard's harp. Tywin's eyes never blinked. "We have lost control of the narrative. Rumor is a very fine blade, and Dorne now wields it." Jaime knew rumor. He had been Kingslayer all his adult life. "What will you do?" "What I always do." Tywin's lips thinned. "The Martells are snakes. If they bear fangs, we break them. I have summoned Lord Paxter Redwine's fleet to hold Blackwater Bay. Mace Tyrell's host will stand between us and Highgarden should Dorne push that far. But first we must hold the capital." Jaime looked to the Iron Throne with its razored edges, ghost light flickering on blades once sworn to Aegon. He remembered wildfire beneath the city, the Mad King's whisper. Hold the capital. He wondered what price this time. Behind him, the throne room doors opened on soft leather creak. He turned to see Grand Maester Pycelle shuffling, a scroll clutched like a lifeline. "My Lord Hand," Pycelle quavered. "I have troubling tidings. A raven from Storm's End. The garrison reports a column bearing the Sunhand spear within half a league of the castle. The Dornish ride with banners of House Dane and Blackmont." Tywin's fingers drummed the carved lion on the step's baluster. "So soon," he said, as though annoyed at poor manners. "Their outriders fly black banners," Pycelle continued, emblazoned not with heraldry but with a single word, vengeance. Night knitted the sands of the Prince's Pass into a tapestry of silver shadows. Oberyn Sand led the vanguard, astride a smoky brown courser, spear held high. Dust rose behind like ghost wings. At her flank loped a lean spearman in purple silk, Sir Daron of Starfall, and behind him 500 lances of House Dane glimmered beneath moonlight, silver stars on violet banners. Torches bobbed, lighting walls of rock that hemmed them close. Yet Oberyn felt no confinement. She could smell open sky ahead, the kingdom of enemies where her father's name would soon thunder like hooves. She had spoken little since they rode from Sunspear. Words were arrows. Once loosed, they could not be recalled. She had none to waste. Instead, she listened. To the creak of saddle leather, the rasp of steel, and the soft, relentless breathing of revenge. Near dawn they broke from the pass into rolling hills veined with streams. Oberyn spurred forward to a stony knoll. Below, the King's Road snaked north. She dismounted, knelt and pressed fingers to the soil. Damp, cool, full of grass scent. This was not their sand, but it would drink Lannister blood just as greedily. "Form the column," she ordered. "At first light we ride for Harvest Hall. Swan's banners will not reach the Boneway before us." Ser DORNE dismounted as well. Stormlanders are stout fighters. They are men. Men bleed. She stood, letting dawn's first blade of gold paint her spearhead. "My father's skull lies cracked, because one man's head weighed more to a king than Dornish honor. The Stormlands will learn the price. Nearness, near no Shizzy." Across the narrow sea, dawn woke Meereen with the cry of gulls. Yet Daenerys Targaryen dreamed of red sand. In her dream, Viserion, Rhaegal, and Drogon circled above a city walled in sawn, baked stone, their shadows sliding like dark serpents, and below them a girl wept beside a broken spear. When she woke, her heart hammered against silk. She sat upright, moon-pale in thin linen, and whispered a name she scarcely remembered speaking in daylight. Missandei appeared as dawn spread. "Your Grace, you called for me." "Send for Sir Barristan," the Queen said, rising. "I would speak of Dorne." Sir Barristan arrived, silver hair still damp from the morning's ablutions. Daenerys poured wine herself, offered him none. "Tell me of Prince Doran," she began. "Tell me of his brother Oberyn. Tell me why, when I close my eyes, I see sand stained red." The old knight's gaze softened. "I served as guard to Princess Elia when she wed Rhaegar. I knew her brothers. Prince Doran, cautious and wise. Prince Oberyn, bold as dawn. He has died?" His breath hitched as she nodded. "The mountain," he whispered. "7, curse him." "Not 7, the Queen said. "Fire and blood, my blood joined to theirs by Elias' children. If dawn rises now, they rise partly for me." Sir Barristan bowed his head. A Martell host at King's Landing could crack the lion's hole and open a door for a dragon. Daenerys murmured, eyes bright with distant fire. "Gather the council. I have tarried too long in Slaver's Bay." "Lordy, Majesty, it did for Nagredit." Though raven wings beat in haste, rumor outpaced them. By the time Nymeria Sand's column of mounted spearmen rode through the tumbling hills near Rainhouse, small folk had fled to root cellars, leaving fields of half-reaped barley bending under warm wind. Cattle lowed in empty pastures, dogs yapped at shadows, and every crossroads rang with talk of the Dornish ghost army that rode by night, killing without sound. Nymeria cut a quiet path, her whip coiled but ready. She spoke soft commands, subtle as a lover's breath. Her men wore no heavy steel, leather, mail, and silk that stirred silent. They crossed bridges on padded hooves, fires banked low each dusk. She scouted ahead alone, guided by a sparrow's trill, leaving a sigil scratched upon a birch trunk to mark her passing. Where Obara was storm and Tyene sweet-violed poison, Nymeria was mist, there, then gone, wetting every blade of grass. Ahead lay a spur of upland forest crowned by the towers of Rainhouse. "How Swan's banners, black swan on storm grey." Nymeria reined in beneath a stand of ash. Distant horns sounded, 2 notes repeated, summoning men to walls. "They know we're here," observed Master Caldro, a lean man with ink-stained fingers. "Good." Nymeria breathed. "A hunted foe makes mistakes. We herd them like goats. Obar will engage from the south by dusk," the maester said, "and Tyene from within before the moon is high." Nymeria's smile crept like moonlight. "Sisters in blood, sisters in art. Rain House will fall silent before first light. Then we ride for Storm's End. She reached into her saddlebag, produced 3 glass vials, each stoppered with wax. Lilac liquid sloshed when tilted. Poison? The maester asked. A gift for Lord Swan's water pots, she replied. He may prefer wine, but soldiers drink what they are given. Where? Shimwash. Tiny moved through Rain House like a breath of jasmine. She had slipped over the wall beneath starlight, bare feet finding purchase on damp stone. A boy's cloak concealed her shape, though moonlight painted her hair silver gold. She passed shadowed windows where guards dozed, climbed a spiral stair where her footfalls fell softer than dust, and emerged in the rookery where caged ravens rustled feathers. She rubbed one feather between thumb and forefinger, thinking of how messages spread. She snapped the neck of each raven in turn, murmuring apology in the faith's tongue. Downward she drifted, through corridors hung with storm-tossed tapestries. Her twin daggers flashed only once, when she came upon a pair of guards playing tiles by lantern light. Blood splashed the board, red droplets shining like rubies upon cedar. She dragged the corpses behind a cedar screen, wiped her blades on their cloaks, and pressed on. In the great hall she found Lord Balin Swan dining on mutton, alone save a squire half asleep. Tiny stepped from behind a pillar, smile poised gentle as mercy. Balin rose, hand reaching for sword, but not fast enough. Her dagger's point touched the hollow of his throat, and she felt his pulse flutter beneath steel. No further, she whispered. Drop the blade. Balin's sword clanged upon flagstones. Tine lifted her free hand, showing a vial of lilac liquid. One drop in your wine cup, she said, caressing the words. Your heart stops slower than a creeping tide. I offer a kinder death. Nod. Balin's eyes darted to his squire. Who are you? Vengeance. Tine breathed and pressed. Wait. Atop the walls of King's Landing, the nights grew restless. Ships gathered in Blackwater Bay. Long, slim craft, with crimson sails emblazoned with suns and spears. They prowled the mouth of the river, slipping in and out of mist like sharks. Dockside gossip said they came and went at will, mocking the red wine fleet's broad-bellied war galleys anchored half a league out. Fishermen whispered of silent swimmers who slit cables under moonless skies, sending harbor chains drifting like dead serpents upon tide. Cersei Lannister watched the bay from the Tower of the Hand, a goblet of arbor gold between fingers. She sipped, though wine tasted thin as water these days. Outside, a crow perched upon a gargoyle, preening. She wished for a crossbow, but settled for words. The Dornish are gnats, she told Qyburn, who lingered in the doorway like mildew. They buzz and nip, but a blaze will burn them. Qyburn's eyes gleamed damply. A blaze, your grace. King Aerys favored wildfire. Aerys died screaming, she said, though her lips curved at the memory of green flame. Have the Alchemist Guild send me their ledgers. I would know their stores. Of course. He bowed. One matter more. A shipment of Dornish wine captured outside Maidenpool bears curious markings. Poison. She licked dryness from her lips. Not as yet detected, Qyburn said. But caution seldom harms. Let Sir Meryn taste it, Cersei decided. If he lives, we toast victory. If he dies, we have gained knowledge. Nah. She turned back to the window as Qyburn left. Below, the city sprawled like a great beast, breathing fear. She pictured Dorne's prince crawling toward her gates, begging mercy. She would grant it in chains. Rain House fell by dawn's first blush. Obara's spear drove through the chest of the last captain upon the parapet. Below, Nymeria's riders corralled survivors into the bailey, swords to their backs. Taina emerged from the hall, wiping blood from her hands. They met in the courtyard as crows wheeled overhead. "It's done," Nymeria said. Obara slammed her spear butt upon stone. "Storm's End stands 3 days' ride. We leave within the hour." Tiny's smile was warm as sun on ripe fruit. "Will you not rest?" "Vengeance rests in King's Landing," Obara replied. She paces outside the Red Keep and dreams of Oberyn's laugh. "Every step slower is a step we steal from justice." Nymeria mounted with a fluid swing. Tine climbed behind a bannerman, arms clasped around his waist like vines. They rode out the shattered gate, banners of dawn bright silver and martel red streaming in the chill dawn breeze. Behind them, Rain House burned, smoke spiraling toward a sky already reddening, as though reflecting blood. Neonod Chudusum Shui in Sunspear. Prince Doran's litter creaked through moonlit gardens toward the Tower of the Sun. He dismissed his bearers, insisting on walking the last flight. When he reached the highest balcony, a seal wind buffeted him, tugging at dark cloak and hair. Below, the harbor glittered with lantern lights as ships loosed moorings, sails bellied with wind toward the north. Ariane Martel waited beside a sundial, her gown the deep blue of twilight. "You choose war at last, father," she said softly. "Yet you send me to Mar. Why exile your heir while Dornish blood is spilled?" Doran placed a gout-gnarled hand upon hers. "Because blood spills readily, and crowns roll with it. If I am wrong, if this fire burns too hot, someone must still lead our people. You will court the Triarchs, bind them with silk, while your cousins bind the lion with iron." Ariane's throat bobbed. "And if the iron fails, then the silk will strangle." He pressed a sealed parchment into her palm. "Deliver this to Lord Connington, in Griffon's Roost. It bears the dragon's mark. The realm is a game of sun, lion, and dragon now. We have danced shadows long enough." Ariane closed her fist around the parchment. "When Oberyn fell, I felt a spear pierce me too." "So did I." He drew her close, resting forehead to hers. "The spear has 2 points, daughter, and both must draw blood." Storm's End. Thunderclouds gathered, though the air held no rain. Lord Selwyn Tarth, solemn-eyed and iron-spined, stood upon the great drum tower parapet. Dornish outriders dusted the horizon, specks against the sea of grass. With him stood Brienne of Tarth, taller by a head, eyes the blue of deep water. She held Oathkeeper, Valyrian blade glinting odd red under stormlight. "They come fast," she said. Selwyn's weather-lined face twitched. "I've sent word to Lord Tyrell. He marches from Bitterbridge with 50,000. Will they arrive in time?" "A good question for the gods." He looked at her. Oberyn's death was a brutal thing, yet vengeance grows more brutal still. If blood must flow, let it not drown the innocent. Brienne swallowed. "Innocence is rarer than dragons, my lord." Below, the first of the Dornish van advanced, spears angled skyward like needles, pricking a bruised cloud. Obera rode front, armor scuffed, eyes fever bright. Wind whipped her cloak, revealing a coil of black banners. Behind her, a column 2 leagues long wound across the plain, a living serpent of bronze, silver, and flame. Brienne raised Oathkeeper to the sky, letting the Regi black steel catch light. A stark sound rolled from her throat, half challenge, half prayer. From the walls, horns answered. The dome above grumbled, and the war truly began. In the bowels of the Red Keep, Tyrion Lannister paced a cell whose walls wept salt. He traced damp stone with 3 fingers, counting paces, rehearsing pleas, curses, jokes, none of which could delay the executioner's sword. His champion lay dead, The trial concluded. Only his father's verdict remained. Footsteps approached. Sir Kevan Lannister entered, lantern raised. Tyrion, my favored uncle. Tyrion mustered a grin. Come to bring a file within a cake? Kevan's brow furrowed. The realm darkens. Storm's End besieged. Rain House aflame. Dawn crosses the reach. Your father cannot fight a war on two fronts while the capital festers. He will offer you a bargain. Neru. Let me guess. Confess. Take the Black Slink to Eastwatch while he butchers Dornish men. Confess. Name the Tyrell girl a co-conspirator and be sent to Casterly Rock for life. A gilded cell instead of the wall. Tyrion barked a laugh. And when Dorne burns this city to ash, Kevan's silence was answer enough. Tyrion stepped closer, shadows cutting canyon lines across his face. Tell my father this. He carved the realm into a monster's head, but every monster has a viper at its heart. If he wants my confession, let him free me first. Else, when the sand snakes slither through these stones, they'll find a dwarf who knows every secret tunnel, every oubliette, every escape hatch beneath the Tower of the Hand. No, Tyrion. And if they find me headless, my tongue will wag on yet in every rumor. I die, and the realm believes the Hand butchered his own blood to silence him. Tyrion's mismatched eyes glittered. That rumor is another blade. We'll see how father likes the taste. Kevan lingered, jaw tight. Then he turned and left, lantern bobbing away, leaving Tyrion with darkness and the heartbeat of approaching war. Blackwater Bay boiled as Dornish skirmish ships harried the Red Wine Fleet's edges, cutting anchor cables, firing sails, melting into the haze. Admiral Paxter Redwine cursed each dawn and counted losses. Food barges burned, Drummond sunk, men lost to shafts tipped in venom that left corpses blackened. The black ships could not stand against his triple-decked war galleys in pitched fight. But the Dornish refused pitched fight, striking at dusk, at fogrise, at tide turn. On the third night after Storm's End fell under siege, a flaming galley named Ardent Maiden drifted loose among Redwine's line. Decks slick with rendered pig fat, sails soaked in lamp oil, she kissed the hull of Golden Star so gently the watch barely called alarm before flames leaped mate to mate. By morning, Golden Star was charred skeleton and Ardent Maiden's scorched prow lolled, still afloat, bearing the Sunhound Spear's scorched black. Civilians crowded the city walls to watch, muttering prayers. Street prophets shrieked at the stranger walked in sailors' boots. Mummers wove new japes, what walks on water and shits fire. A Dornishman with a grudge. Gods laugh, but fear no. Always, the banners of the lion and stag above rotted ramparts seemed to sag a little lower. In Flea Bottom, a slender girl named Lomel, once baker's daughter, now pickpocket, stood upon an overturned crate, hair cropped ragged, cheeks smudged with ash for rouge. She told a story to any ear, of how the Dornish prince would open the gates and feed the poor bread dipped in honey, how the Lannisters' gold would pour like ale. Coins clinked at her feet. That he starved for hope will pay in coppers. 2 streets away, a hooded man listened. Berries moved like a hush through crowded lanes, powdered scent masking the reek. He noted each rumor, each shout, each sigh. In a city poised on sword edge, breath could tip the balance. When he reached the Red Keep, he shed his rags for silken robes and floated to the small council, where Pycelle and Mace Tyrell bickered over grain. Lord Tyrell slammed a ledger. Half the harvest rots in Highgarden storehouses, yet my wagons cannot pass Storm's End with Dornish spears behind. Pycelle wheezed. Perhaps we might treat with Prince Doran. Tywin's gaze cut sharper than winter wind. We do not treat with rebels. Varys hummed. Perhaps, my lord, We should. A whisper says Daenerys Targaryen stirs in Meereen, gathering sails of her own. The realm may soon have dragons on one flank and sand spears on the other. Tywin's mouth set. Then we cut one head before the other strikes. His hand fell upon a scroll bearing the lion seal. Lord Tyrell, muster your levies. When your grain moves, it will march beneath steel. We lift the siege of Storm's End first, then turn south to crush Dorne's heart. Now do me, Tishanandabis Tabao, Shai, Idino. Mace Tyrell puffed. As you command, Lord Hand. Varys bowed, but his eyes glimmered spider black. He thought of hidden tunnels beneath the black cells, and of a little dragon queen across the sea, and wondered which flame would reach King's Landing first. Then, Trision, Raja, Chidishi, Shiwata Destiny, Habikashrotu. From Maegor's holdfast, Queen Margaery watched Tyrell banners depart the city, green sea of roses fluttering westward on the King's Road. She prayed for their swift return. Yet deep inside, she feared their victory. A conquered Dorne would owe loyalty only to the lion, not the rose, and Tywin's knife carved alliances as cleanly as flesh. She turned to the Septa, who trailed her. Send word to my grandmother in Highgarden. Tell her the city grows restless. Charity may quell hunger more than swords. The Septa curtsied. Margaery pressed cool hands to a warm stone sill and looked south, imagining where Storm's End squatted beneath siege, where Oberyn's daughters rode, where vengeance marched under burning sun. She wondered if vengeance left room for mercy, or if mercy had already fled the realm. She said, Storm's End loomed like a clenched fist. Obara's army ringed it in layers. Outermost Drella's wood, where bonfires spat sparks into night. Middle in grassy vale, where catapults took shape from felled oaks. Innermost pressed along the ancient curtain wall, scaling ladders propped beneath arrow slits, keeping garrison archers. Selwyn Toth stood within the drum tower's narrow slit window, peering out across siege lights. Each flame flickered doom. Beside him, Brienne sipped barley broth, gaunt cheeks shadowed. They build rams, she observed. Wood burns, Selwyn replied, though his tone lacked faith. Below, a troop of Dornish knights trotted beneath black banners, torches strapped to lances, sparks trailing. They chanted in a deep, rhythmic hum, Oberyn, Oberyn. Brienne clenched Oathkeeper's hilt. Honor compels us to fight, but honor cannot mend skulls. Selwyn's sigh was wind-worn. Pray Tyrell's host rides swift. Man, she. Along the Mander, Lord Mace Tyrell's banners stirred like a blooming meadow. 3,000 knights, thrice that many Menhat arms, wagons of grain. Siege towers disassembled and bundled. At his side rode his mother, Lady Olenna, eyes bright as frost on iron. Too much pomp, she said, flicking at a gilded pennant. Marching to war or dancing to court? Mace puffed. To war, mother. To relieve Storm's End, punish the Dornish, and prove to the whole realm that House Tyrell holds the king's favor. Nandessamor, Didawau. Nate. And does the king favor you, or does his hand hold your leash? Faster, boy. Mace scowled. My lords expect dignity. Your lords expect victory, Olenna snapped. Dignity may be buried after. If the lions win, they will not thank the rose. If the lions lose, they will blame the rose. So ride. She dug heels into her palfrey, cloak swirling. Knights spurred forward, columns accelerating. Dust rose in clouds. Mace followed, fat cheeks jiggling, hoping the gods esteemed haste over pageantry. On Dragonstone's wind-lashed parapet, Stannis Baratheon heard gull cries mingle with distant thunder. Melisandre stood beside him, red gown clinging, eyes glowing as embers. "In the flames I see lions at war with serpents," she said. "Above them soars a shadow with wings spread wide enough to blot the sun. Dragon or phoenix. A rebirth in fire." Stannis' lips thin. Brother's city falters. If Dorne breaches King's Landing, the throne stands for the taking. None she. "And still you count ships," she chided. "The Lord of Light gifts you a path paved in burning lions." "It is not mine until I stride it," he said. Yet his gaze fixed southward, to a realm cracking like old ice. He pictured the Iron Throne empty, lions slain, serpents bleeding, and his banner rising above all. But in the deep of his measured heart, he heard screams of men and children caught between. He wondered what price for a crown. Illyria's sand knelt within the sept of memory and sun spear, candles flickering like stars scattered on desert. She pressed her brow to chilled marble, whispered Oberyn's name, and felt a pulse within stone as though the pillars kept his heartbeat for her. She prayed not for victory. Victory was inevitable now, carved into fate by blood. She prayed for the dead, for those not yet dead, for daughters who rode into fire. A soft cough. Illyria rose to see Master Caliot, robes rustling. "A raven," he said, offering parchment. She broke the seal. Ink blurred where tear met wax. "Storm's End encircled. Rain house taken. Tyrell moves. All spears eager. Obara." Illyria folded the letter, pressed it to lips, then heart. She closed her eyes and named each daughter in turn, voice soft as sand at night. Obara, Nymeria, Tiny, Sorella, Elia, Obella, Dorea, Loreza. "Ride swift, strike true, live." Candles guttered, casting tall, wavering shadows, shadows that danced like vipers. "Oh, she." Across the known world, ravens flew, rumors spread, dreams darkened. In River Run, Brynden Blackfish Tully polished a sword unused since the Red Wedding, eyes narrowing as messages arrived of Lannister woes. In the Vale, Petyr Baelish whispered into Sansa Stark's ear of shifting winds, suggesting roses wilt when scorched by southern sun. On Pike, Euron Crow's eye-toasted chaos, for chaos cracked kingdoms ripe for plunder. In Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen strode beneath the shadow of her dragons, sails unfurling in the harbor, eyes fixed west as though she might see sun spears flickering fires across half a world of water. 5 hours, she murmured to herself, tasting the shape of a future. Let the sands count down. And in King's Landing, Tywin Lannister stood before a mirror as servants fastened his gilded gorget. He gazed upon his reflection, saw confidence, resolve, legacy die. But deep within, a tremor started, slight as a hairline fracture in steel, invisible, deadly. He blinked and the tremor was gone, replaced by iron will. Yet tremors spread, and somewhere far below, in dungeons dank and twisting, a viper's egg hatched in silence. The night swelled with portents, and dawn's spear awaited its mark. Da. Dark clouds pressed closer to Storm's End with each turning hour, bruised and swollen, as if the sky itself felt the tightening cordon of Dornish spears. By the 7th day of siege, the great drum tower's gray stones ran slick with salt fog, and every courtyard echoed with the rasp of whetstones on steel. Yet inside the ancient walls, Lord Selwyn's granaries held, and the wells still sang cold and clear, a fact that nibbled at Obara Sand's patience like mice on stored grain. Near midnight she stalked the shadowed periphery of the Dornish camp, boots squelching through damp turf. Around her crackled 1,000 watchfires, their orange halos ghosting spears in wavering light. Hammers rang at the engineers' lines, where wheeled scorpions took shape under canvas tarps, trebuchets towering behind them like skeletal giants. The roar of the distant surf mingled with the thrum of anticipation. A low cord stretched taut. Nymeria emerged from between two striped pavilion tents, a coil of dripping ivy clutched in gloved hands. She flicked droplets away as though sloughing scales. Main culvert's iron bars are rusted clean through. Her voice carried the hush of a snake sliding under leaves. Taine's rats have already greased the hinges. A score of us could slip under the curtain wall by the next low tide. Obara's jaw flexed. A score is a pebble tossed against a fortress. A pebble that strikes the right place can start an avalanche. And you're certain her poisons still flow in their cisterns. Nymeria's pale gaze glittered. 2 nights gone, a lad fetched water for the garrison kitchen. He collapsed before the drawbridge raised, lips blue as twilight. The maester blamed camp fever, but fever does not coil black veins along the tongue. Me, and Monsieur Junot. Obara's fingers tightened on her spear shaft. Then tomorrow at moonset we strike the culvert. Trebuchets loose at dawn, ladders at first horn. I want their eyes at the sky while we gut them from beneath. Nymeria nodded once, then drifted away, melding with the smoke and torch glow. Obara turned toward the command tent, beyond the hospital wagons. Inside, she found Taimi bent over a map, auburn curls haloed by lantern light. Tiny files and wrap bundles lay arranged like game pieces along the river blue inkwash of the stormlands. She did not look up. 2 ounces left of the stranger's kiss, Taine murmured, nudging a bundle toward a painted tower. Enough to hush 100 throats, if the gods are gentle. There's little gentle in gods or poison, Obara said. Nymeria's path is clear. The hour of storm is upon us. Taine raised soft doe eyes that belied the daggers strapped to her forearms. The walls will fall, Obara. But take care. Vengeance satisfies no stomach once its hunger is met. Obara frowned. Justice is a feast unto itself. Taine tilted her head, lips curving. So we have tasted since childhood, my sister. Yet one feast can lead to thirst for another. Let us drink slow, lest we drown. Merjian, Shu. The sea. Dawn broke in swaths of violent peach and claret across the bay, where the red wine fleet rode at anchor. Cannon-sized drums boomed from flagship to flagship. Baxter Redwine strode his quarterdeck, cloak whipping, spyglass fixed on the river mouth. The spyglass trembled. 10 lean, lateen-rigged vessels had appeared in the mist, black hulls knifing forward in 2 V formations. Between them lurked a squat, broad craft piled high with bundled reeds and sealed clay jars, the same jars his lookouts had spied adrift 3 nights before, drifting innocently until they burst into green hellfire beneath the galley starlight. Bastards mean to torch my line again, Paxter growled. His signals officer, a freckled lad missing half an ear, clutched colored flags. Orders, my lord. The galleys Wheel and Hayford cut them off. Chain shot their masts. Load the hoses, ready buckets. Buy all the grapes of the arbor. Drown their bloody cinders before they reach us. None. The lad flew down the companionway. Drums rolled faster. Oars dipped. Hulls drew into new arcs. Above the fog, black sails bellied. Even so, Paxter sensed something awry. The Dornish captains showed no urgency, no sign of halting once their blaze ship burned. They advanced as though the doom of every vessel, friend and foe alike, pleased them. A spotter cried from the foremast top. Paxter turned his glass northward. Out of the mist glided a second wave of hulls. 12, 15. Impossible to count at speed. Painted in midnight hues with narrow raked bows, their decks strangely low. Ram ships, he realized, stomach lurching, low enough to slip under his broadside guns. Fire raft was a diversion. The snouts behind it would pierce red wine keels like boar tusks. He swung to the weather rail, bellowing at the nearest trumpeter. Signal Iron Branch. Brace for ramming attack on the starboard flank. All ships, staggered line, keep spacing. The trumpeter's cheeks ballooned. Brazen notes cut the morning hush. Below, sailors scurried. Chains rattled, bowsprits dipped. The black-hulled rams came on silent, save for the hiss of cleaving water. Too fast, Paxter thought. Too damn fast. He glimpsed slender silhouettes crouched on those decks. Archers, each drawing curved bows. A swarm of arrows arced in unison, not at sails or men, but at the water itself. Paxter frowned until the shafts struck, cork-fletched, each tip bearing a sealed bladder. Where they pierced, slick rainbow sheens spread. Oistauten, Panisum. Grapes save us, Paxter whispered. A single torcher on the blazed ship's foredeck lifted a brand from lantern oil. She wore a mask of painted bone. With theatrical flourish, she cast the brand onto her own deck, then knelt, hands raised skyward as flame whooshed. Roaring fire raced the length of the raft, licking up bundled reeds, spilling along the oiled water in sheets of writhing orange. Rams lunged through the fire curtain, hulls black against incandescent spray, their prows tipped in barbed steel. All along red wines, rightmost galleys, men screamed to oars. But momentum and wind favored the attackers. Paxter's own flagship heeled as helmsman threw the tiller. Crews scrambled for hoses, bucket lines, sand barrels. One ram crashed head first into the lighter marble heart with a crack, like a splintering rib. Another slid under sun-reel stern, tearing rudder, oar port, and men alike. Ember-lit oil pooled to waterline hatches, found powder lockers, found tar. Paxter shouted himself hoarse amid the chaos, ordering counter-broadside. Chain shot word, snaring a ram's mast and sending it cartwheeling. 2 Dornish hulls split under round shot, their decks awash in flame. But for every black ship shattered, 2 slipped past the line, unleashing more fire arrows. By the time the sun crested full, 5 red wine warships burned to the water, 3 more crippled, while the surviving Dornish craft wheeled away. Crews cheering in a tongue Paxter did not know, but would hear forever after in dreams. The red wine fleet still outnumbered them, but numbers no longer comforted. Dread had leached into every sailor's marrow. Nearly good, swoosh. At the mouth of the black cells, Jaime Lannister waited, cloaked in shadow. A single flicker of torchlight farther down the corridor etched damp stone. He counted breaths, his own measured, the jailer's ragged. Somewhere beyond, Tyrion's muttering. Steel whispered free of scabbard. When the jowler made the final bend, Jaime struck, pommel to temple. The man crumpled without sound. Jaime caught the keys before they clattered. There was no turning back now. Setting Tyrion loose would end whatever tattered thread still spun between him and their father. Yet if he watched his brothers strangled for a crime neither of them committed, the thread would snap on its own and coil around Jaime's throat. He unlocked Tyrion's cell. The dwarf blinked in torchlight, red-rimmed eyes wide behind mats of tangled hair. "I'd begun to think you forgot the way," Tyrion rasped. "I'd sooner forget my name. Some say you already have, Kingslayer, Oathbreaker. We'll add Brother Snatcher to the tally." "Speak less," Jaime said, slicing the manacles. "Time leaks." Tyrion rubbed chafed wrists. "Where do we leak to?" "A boat waits at the base of the cliff. A smuggler in our father's good pay. Though he doesn't know it's my father's gold filling the purse. Men, did I know ran, Dano desumich, desabshiri, debden." How delightfully ironic. "Does father know?" "Not yet." "Then let's hurry before irony becomes eulogy." They crept through twisting tunnels dug in Maegor's reign, avoiding sentries by half-remembered alcoves. Twice they froze as patrols passed. Once Tyrion nearly sneezed on torch soot. Jaime clamped a golden hand over his mouth until tears streamed. At a grate overlooking Blackwater Bay, humid wind slapped perfume of algae. Tar. Distant smoke. Ships burning. Tyrion peered. Red Wing's banners aflame. Oh, sweet sister, how you must be shrieking. Jaime lifted the grate, lowering a rope. Climb. Tyrion eyed the drop. Ah, after you, dear brother. My shoulders are broader than your stump. Jaime rolled his eyes, swung over, descended hand over hand. Spray, cooled sweat. At bottom, he braced Tyrion's landing. They clambered along a slave ledge slick with moss until a black skiff emerged, a hooded rower holding it steady. Payment, the rower grunted. Jaime tossed a pouch. The rower felt the weight, nodded. They boarded. Tyrion settled on a thwart, breathing sea salt. Fires flickered across the bay. In all this confusion, who will notice a missing dwarf? Pray no one, Jaime said. He let himself look back once at the looming red walls, the castle he had served and hated. Somewhere above, Cersei schemed, Tywin planned, a realm toppled by weight of pride. Jaime wondered if his part in the toppling had truly begun the day he drew sword against Aerys, or if every man is born with cracks, waiting only the right hammer. The skiff's oars dipped, pulling them into rough chop. A gull cried overhead, sounding like laughter. In the queen's ballroom, Cersei paced beneath chandeliers whose crystal pendants jingled with her stiletto tread. Grandmaster Pycelle hovered by a table laden with candelabra and half-empty flagons. Qyburn stood in a shadowed corner, the neckline of his robes dotted with green-flecked candlelight, hands clasped like a penitent's. Cersei paused only long enough to down another goblet of arbor gold. Storm's End will break, she pronounced, voice crackling. When it does, the Martells will bleed enough to fill every cistern they poison. Pycelle's jowls quivered. If I may, your grace, fresh ravens from the Tyrell host indicate delays upon the Roseford. Heavy rains washed out the bridge. Enough. She hurled the goblet. It ricocheted, clanged, rolled. Wine spattered golden carpets like garnets. Delays, excuses, cowardice. Loras could have crossed on plank and rope if he loved his king half so well as he loves his own glory. The Dornish harry every supply train, Qyburn observed, and the Reach levies grow wary of extended marches. The wine harvest looms. Cersei glared daggers. If farmers prefer grapes to their queen's peace, I will feed them rotten fruit. Pycelle cleared his throat. There is also disquiet along the Gold Road, banditry risen, small folk whisper of the queen's soldiers hoarding grain. They blame me for hunger they sowed, she snapped. Rumors wind, we endure. A page entered, panting. Your grace, news from the dungeons. Sarosphir reports the imp is gone. Silence froze the hall, save for the faint crackle of dripping wax. Cersei's chin rose slowly, eyes blazing emerald fire. Gone, she repeated, savoring wrath. Find him. Close every gate, scour every holdfast, drag the river. Bring me his head, or the heads of those who slept on watch. She whirled on Qyburn. You swore his chains were tight. They were, the former maester said. Expressions smooth as oiled silk. A shadow can pass even through iron, if aided by another shadow. Pycelle blanched. Surely none in the keep. Oh, none. Cersei laughed. A brittle thing. Spies crawl here like ants on honey, but mark me. The first corpse we display will remind the rest how sweet loyalty tastes. The page fled to relay orders. Pycelle tottered out behind. Qyburn remained. As servants scurried to mop wine, Cersei gripped the balustrade of a side stair until ivory knuckles showed. In the flames, she whispered to herself, I see a dwarf dancing among spears, but the dance ends at my feet. Qyburn's voice drifted gentle. Would your grace like me to ready the black cells for new guests? Ready the crematorium. One day, down to me. Starlight silvered the wide plain before storm's end. Tents muted to gray hummocks, siege engines loomed like crouched beasts. In the lee of a dismantled ladder, Nymeria Sand crouched beside Oberyn and 18 picked fighters. Salt wind carried the hush of low tide. Good. The culvert mouth would gape half exposed. Oberyn spun the butt of her spear once, then planted it. We enter swift, shut down any guard, secure the inner grate. From there, Tyne meets us in the pantry 2 levels above. Remember, veils first, blades second. Arrow traps line the corridor beyond the cistern. A murmur of assent fluttered. They waded knee-deep through pooled water, moonlight rippling. The culvert mouth emerged, a yawning arch of stone, thick with slime. Rusted iron grate hung askew, as promised. Nymeria slithered through first, whipping a loop of rope around a spike. The others followed. Inside, air chilled, heavy with mildew and rotted seaweed. Tallow-soaked torches were lit only as needed, one every 30 yards, to preserve night vision. They crept waist-deep along a central channel, listening for echoes. Twice they heard the scuff of distant leather, but no alarm sounded. Up a ladder to the cistern, water-mirrored torch glow. 2 Stormlander guards lounged on a walkway, wool cloaks drawn tight against damp cold. One lifted a wineskin. The smell of Tynese, lilac draught, drifted even here, more potent than wine, though the guards did not know. They never saw Nymeria vault the railing. Her whip snapped, catching one throat. Oberyn's spear ended the other. Both bodies slid silently into ink. They pushed on, feet muffled by wet straw now, until the pantry door loomed. It opened inward on greased hinges. Tyne melted from shadow, cheeks flushed. The garrison drinks, she whispered. 30 or more already pale. The rest feast. While men fall on turrets, they expect a ladder rush at dawn. Oberyn touched her forehead to Tyne's. Then we give them dawn's kiss. They parted into 3 squads. Oberyn's to lower the gate's winch and open the salaport. Nymeria's to seize the drum tower stair. Tyne's to claim the maester's rookery and silence ravens. They moved like separate arteries driving the same heartbeat, Oberyn's heartbeat, echoing through stone. Within half an hour, drums on the Dornish ridge thundered. Trebuchets unleashed flaming shot that arced high, then shattered across Storm's End's curtain wall. Sparks burst, a false signal for defenders to man their parapet. As garrison soldiers mustered topside, the sallyport creaked, unseen. Oberyn's squad spilled into the outer yard, blade work swift and brutal. A war horn bellowed warning, far too late. Brienne of Tarth had not slept. She burst from the tower in half-fastened plate to see Dornish spears already flooding the yard. Thunder boomed overhead. Rain, long withheld, chose that moment to loose its weight. Dousing torches, turning stone slick. Brienne rallied a knot of men-at-arms about her, Oathkeeper flashing red in the firelight. "Hold the inner stair," she cried. "Protect Lord Selwyn." She plunged into the melee. Spears cracked, bucklers rang. She felt the give of mail under her edge, the sting of pike butt on hip, the crash of shield to jaw. Yet for each foe, she felled 2 more surged as the tide. Dornish whistles cut the air. Shrill, rhythmic, guiding units unseen and rain-blurred dark. Brienne's helm shifted. Rain stung her eyes. Oblong shields, painted with the sun and spear, pressed around, pushing her line back step by step toward the tower arch. A figure vaulted over a fallen corpse. Nymeria Sand, whip whirling overhead like a halo of serpents. Brienne parried, but the lash coiled her wrist, ripping Oathkeeper from grip. She ducked a spear thrust, grappled a Dornishman, hurled him into Nymeria. Both stumbled. Brienne scooped her sword, retreated into the tower as the portcullis rattled down. Iron spikes slammed stone, severing a half-dozen spears. For a breath, she dared hope. Then the portcullis shuddered, chains above unwound in jerks, Oberyn yanking the windlass. Brienne cursed, spun to raise stairs 2 at a time. Atop the drum tower, Lord Selwyn strained to tighten a cuirass as thunderclaps rocked the battlements. "Tie it if you must," he growled to a squire with trembling fingers. "Storm or no storm, Tarth steel does not rust tonight." A crash echoed up the stair. Selwyn shoved the squire aside, drew a longsword old as Egon's Landing, its edge honed to razor under Brienne's patient hand. From the stairwell emerged Tiny, blades glinting candle gold. She blocked the doorway with easy grace, eyes the color of a bruise. "Lord Selwyn," she greeted, breath soft. "Will you yield Storm's End?" "Surrender is for men afraid to die," he said. "Death is for all men. Only the timing varies." "Naid, should we say?" He advanced, sword high. Tiny stepped in, low, arms crossing. Daggers flicked past his guard, slicing leather cords beneath armor. Selwyn felt his cuirass loosen. He batted one dagger aside and slashed, nicking her sleeve. She danced away, teasing. "Your daughter respected Oberyn," she said. "Would you dishonor his memory by forcing me to spill your blood?" Ain't a toe flick of a throwing blade, not at Selwyn but at the squire. The lad yelped, falling, dagger buried to hilt and shoulder. Selwyn's eye flicked, Tiny lunged. Steel kissed his wrist, parting artery. Hot pulse spurted. Cursing, he backhanded, catching her jaw. She spun with the blow, came around behind him like silk committing murder. Her blade slipped under his gorget. Selwyn froze. Tyne's breath warmed his ear. "Surrender your gate, my lord, and I will tend your wound myself." Blood slicked his palm, heartbeat hammering. Honor roared for refusal, reason. Brienne's certain death if the fight continued, whispered acceptance. Walls are stone, he thought. Stone can be rebuilt. Lives lost are lost. He sagged. Tiny eased him down, binding wrist in tourniquet cloth. In the courtyard, horns of House Tarth sounded cease. A lone voice shouted parley. Oberyn halted her strike, spear point inches from a kneeling sergeant. "Yield!" The sergeant's cry rolled through echo. "My lord orders yield." Silence gripped the yard, save for rain hiss. Oberyn's eyes flicked to battlements, saw Tarth banners lowered, replaced by black sun and spears. She exhaled once, deep. "Gather wounded," she commanded. "Treat prisoners. Burn the rest of their dead with honor. My father would have it served." Nymeria touched her shoulder. Their gazes met, no words passed, none needed. One fortress fallen, countless more to go. Far west upon the Roseford's swelling banks, Lord Mace Tyrell cursed as his engineers reported another day's work blown to ruin. Rain-fattened rivers surged over temporary pontoons, sweeping timber frames away like children's toys. Behind him, ranks of foot soldiers idled in waterlogged encampments, morale dampening. Olenna Tyrell took matters into wrinkled hands. She summoned her personal carpenters, had them fell towering elms to fashion a narrow but sturdy beam bridge. When Mace hesitated at the prospect of marching men single file across a slick beam, she rapped his knee with her ivory cane. "A goose may waddle, but she still reaches the grain," she snapped. "Send your light cavalry first. Dry ground ahead can expand a beachhead." "Might lose half to accidents," Mace protested. "Lose half here and all at Storm's End if you tarry," she returned. unless you relish seeing roses trampled by snakes. Thus prodded, Mace ordered Sir Talbot Series outriders to ford. Horse by horse, they edged across the narrow spine, hooves sliding. A dozen fell, but many more reached the far shore, establishing pickets. Supply wagons followed on broader trestles lashed behind. When at last the host marched, the sun rose pale through scudding cloud, and morale brightened, if only to escape mire. Word of Storm's End's fall arrived on swift wing near midday. The messenger, soaked and trembling, knelt before Mace's pavilion. "The gates are lost, my lord. Lord Selwyn lives but is prisoner. Dornish banners now hang from the drum tower." Mace's florid face drained. Olenna allowed him precisely 2 heartbeats of stunned silence. "Every moment you linger," she said quietly, "the snakes slither closer to King's Landing. Move!" Mace swallowed, then barked at heralds to sound the march. Within an hour, the Tyrell host was en road, muddy but resolute, banners snapping like green flames. Yet 30 leagues yawned between them and Storm's End, and beyond lay still more leagues to the capital. Olenna knew they raced not only spears but rumor. If King's Landing heard of Tyrell delay and Dornish victory, the throne's fragile legitimacy could shatter like spun glass. High above Maraine's harbor, Daenerys watched her flagship, the Silver Wind, take on the last of winter grain. Barristan Selmy stood behind, white cloak stirred by fitful breeze, carrying the tang of brine and oud smoke. 27 ships, your grace," he said. 10 true war galleys, the rest transports and Pentoshi carracks. The green grace of Meereen sends 2 more by morning. "And Drogon?" she asked, eyes distant. "He hunts at dawn, yet returns each dusk." Barristan paused. "He senses your stirring heart." Daenerys touched the balcony rail. "Dorne rises. Tywin bleeds. If ever there was a moment to cross, it is now. But the bay, it still festers. Not until I. His Grace Hizdahr rules in your stead," Barristan said. "The peace you forged holds, for now. Wars wait for no queen, my lady. They simply crown another." She turned, silver gold hair rippling. "Then let them crown the dragon." Below, 3 beasts circled in widening gyre, black, cream, and jade magnificent even in distance. Their roars rolled like distant thunder, mingling with shipyard clamor. Sailors paused, heads tilted, half fearful, half awed. 3 dragons, Barristan whispered. "A spear none alive remember facing." "Tywin will remember," Daenerys said, "even if his memory lasts only the blink before flame." She turned inward. "Rouse the council. At moonrise tomorrow we sail. Charts, supplies, contingencies for storms, and for cities that might bar our harbor. Sunspear will open its gates," Barristan predicted. "The Martells bent knee to Elias' babe before Robert's rebellion. They will bend again to Elias' sister in blood. Then Sunspear shall be our lantern upon Westeros. That, and Storm's End if Abara holds true." She brushed fingers along the dragon bone hilt at her waist, once belonging to her brother Rhaegar. "Soon, Selmy. Let every sea between here and the 7 kingdoms remember what it feels like to burn." In the wine-scented dusk of Riverrun, Brynden Tully conferred with scouts across a map flecked with candle grease. Rumors of Lannister weakness multiplied, with the Freys locked in petty feuds over succession, and the lion stretched against Dorne. Rivers rippled with possibilities. His nephew Edmure, gaunt from captivity, leaned on the map table. "The Blackfish hunts again," he said, faint smile cutting his beard. "I never imagined seeing your eyes light at strategy, uncle. After all these months." Brynden grunted. "An old fish still knows the currents. If King's Landing's grip loosens, we take our river back." "No, you think Dorne will truly stride the capital?" "I think chaos is a ladder," Brendan quoted, unaware of Littlefinger whispering same to others. "And when a ladder rises, sometimes a fish finds foothold." He looked southward as if stone walls turned transparent. "Old debts are paid in blood or surrender. If the lions tumble, let them know the Tullys remember." Mern, damnation, Belmiorn, Shum Chaos, Pashers. Under torchlight in an abandoned stable on Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon stood before rows of mustering men. Tuchan Sellswords, fishermen hardened by sea, knights still loyal to Storm's blood. Melisandre's red shadow flickered behind him like living flame. "The Dornish strike the throne my brother's bastards lounge upon," Stannis addressed, voice iron. "The lions bleed, the roses wither. What better season for a stag to reclaim his birthright?" A murmur of assent rumbled. Stannis' jaw worked. "But hear this truth. Victory demands sacrifice. I will not storm a city of innocence. I will send terms. If the Queen Regent spurns them, we carve our path clean. If she yields, we judge justice after." Melisandre's ruby glowed. "Light and fire led your way, your grace, but shadows may serve as well." "No more shadows," Stannis growled low. "They served enough at Storm's End long ago. My path henceforth walks in sun." Melisandre bowed, but her smile suggested secrets yet. Stannis turned to Davos Seaworth. "Ready the fleet. We sail as Tyrell marches. Should roses and lions tangle with snakes, we slip the dagger home?" "Lys." Davos inclined his head. "And if the dragon sails too? Then we cut a different course." Stannis looked to the dark horizon. "A realm cannot serve two conquerors. One shall arrive first. I mean it to be me." Tyrion Lannister sat in the stern of the skiff, wrapped in a stolen cloak, watching King's Landing shrink to a prickle of torch dots. The hooded boatman rowed without speech. Jaime bent over the thwart, hair and gold hand drenched by spray, breathing heavy. "Tell me," Tyrion said between shivers, "is there a plan beyond rowing in circles?" "Illyrio Mopatis maintains agents in the capital," Jaime answered. "One owes me a favor large enough to hide you, perhaps across the narrow sea." Tyrion huffed fogged breath. "My head has a price. If I step foot in Essos, bounty hunters will smell Lannister coin. Then what? Stay and be flayed by our sister?" Tyrion gazed at the glittering basin where red wine ships still trembled. "War upins board, pieces stray. I may find a home among those who hate the lion." Jaime's mouth quirked. "You are a lion. A bad one, apparently." Silence fell, save for creak of oarlocks. Finally Tyrion asked, "Why risk everything to save me?" Jaime stared at the water. "Because you were innocent, and because once, long ago, I swore an oath to protect innocence. I've broken enough oaths already." Tyrion touched his brother's arm. "Then tonight you kept one. Yee. With Storm's End secured, Obara dispatched ravens to Sunspear. Gate taken. Rose host delayed. March continues. She left a garrison of 500 spears under Ser Daron and rode north with the main force, aiming to link with Dornish ships at Massey's Hook. Along the march, her column swelled. Small folk, small lords of griffins roost angry at Lannister levies, even outlaw companies eager to bite the lion. Yet supplies dwindled, rain-soaked bowstrings, horses thin, still Obara press. Each night she walked among the men, sharing salt pork and laughter, telling stories of the Viper's first duel in Volantis. Morale hardened, but each night also brought scouts whispering of Tyrell approach, perhaps only 2 days behind. At dusk on the 17th day since Oberyn's death, Obara crested the ridge above Fellwood. Below, campfires dotted forest edge, Tyrell vanguard. Beyond the woods, The king's road wound like a pale ribbon, straight toward King's Landing, a race neither could afford to lose. She conferred with Nymeria and Tyne beside a fallen log. Rain drummed leaves overhead. Forward patrol counts 10,000, Nymeria said. Cavalry heavy. The main host may be twice that. Nurse. Oberyn eyed the dark gap between pines, where tents flickered. We cannot outnumber them. We can outrun them. Not with their horse, Tyne observed. But a horse will spook at fire. Oberyn's brow furrowed. Torch the wood. Nymeria shook her head. Wind blows south. Fire would sweep our line first. Tyne unwrapped a golden-laid file. Smoke without flame. Dust of the Black Lotus. Breath it and a stallion thinks he fights shadow cats. Oberyn's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. At first light, we ride half our horse wide around. Empty these files upwind. When Tyrell's mounts buck, we break his line. No and DORNE, Nymeria added. I send scouts to fell trees behind their rear guard. Delay pursuit either way. Rain eased to drizzle. Oberyn stood, spear point reflecting pale starlight. Dawn decides which banner reaches the Red Keep first. Sisters, remember our father. Nymeria laid a hand on her arm. Tyne kissed Oberyn's cheek. They parted to martial men, moving like silent ghosts through dripping fern. Inside King's Landing, anxiety writhed. Markets inflated. Bakers guarded loaves with cudgels. The apple cart riots of Joffrey's reign were whispered anew. Cersei ordered additional gold cloaks, yet trust eroded as quickly as coin. To distract common tongues, she staged lavish thanksgivings in the Great Sept, parading Tommen in cloth of gold, but every bow seemed a rebuke of cost. In quiet courtyards, knights murmured that the queen's hand had grown pale, seldom seen. Tywin studied maps until candlewax puddled, yet for all his planning every raven brought worse tidings. Storms and lost, fleet burned, Tyrell delayed. The old lion's eyes reddened at edges, yet his voice remained iron. He summoned Sir Adam Marbrand. Send swift riders to River Run. Promise House Freylands equal to River Run itself if they march at once to intercept the Dornish column. Marbrand hesitated. Frey men are scattered, my lord. The Blackfish raids the Trident. Walder may not muster swiftly. Then promise twice, Tywin said. If promises fail, remind Lord Walder my last gift was his daughter's match to Bolton. I can unmake gifts. Marbrand bowed and left. Alone, Tywin permitted his fingers to tremble briefly against a map. Storm's End's marker, a red fortress icon, he tipped over. One toppled piece among hundreds, yet a finger nudged it back upright, almost reflexive. Pride denies surrender even on parchment. On a briny spit outside the ruins of Tarth's faring village, Brienne sat bound to a post, armor stripped, cheeks bruised. Rain had washed blood from her jaw, but left purple blooming skin. Across the fire knelt Nymeria Sand, tending to a kettle. The steam smelled of cloves and mint. Pleasant. You slew 6 of my men, Nymeria said, stirring. 5 still breathe thanks to you striking hilt first. Strange mercy. Brienne met her gaze through wet hair. They sought only to hold their home. Not all men wish war. Nymeria nodded. She produced a key. I release you. Prince Doran values honor. So did your Lord Selwyn. I bind no knight who fought fairly. She unlocked manacles. Brienne's shoulders sagged, but she rose tall. Where will you go? Nymeria asked gently. Where oaths lead, Brienne answered, thinking of Sansa, of Catelyn's last plea. North, perhaps, or wherever innocent blood needs shield. Nymeria tipped her chin. Then may roads open. Brienne retrieved battered armor, slung sword. As Dawn's first band of gold lifted, she rode north on a borrowed palfrey, alone once more. haunted by the sight of storm's ends, ancient walls draped in cloth of gold and red sun alike, a clash of destinies unresolved. The clash resolved before Fellwood with the wail of a single horn. Tyrell outriders, cantering the forest verge, saw shadows pour from mist, heard Dornish warpipes keen, felt mounts prance beneath unsteady scents. A haze of bitter smoke drifted on morning breeze, stinging nostrils. Horses whinnied, whites showing. Then Oberyn's left wing crashed into Tyrell's flank. Spears leveled, banners streaming. Tyrell knights jerked reins as steeds balked. One stallion reared under Sir Gillard Morrigan, throwing him onto muddy loam before trampling. Panic rattled line to line. Tyrell captains shouted formation, but smoke swirled, confusion thickened. From opposite edge, Nymeria's light horse flanked, arrows clattering into rose-embroidered shields. Tyrell archers attempted volley, but shafts sailed high when ranks rippled. Amid the chaos, Oberyn drove spear toward the center banner. Mace Tyrell's personal standard of golden rose on a field of green. Mace, caught unprepared, hastened onto a destrier, bellowing for cavalry wedge. Sir Hobber Redwine rallied a knot of guards. They charged, lances out. Oberyn at the midfield, deflecting one lance with spear shaft, stabbing upward to unhorse another. She spun, cloak flying, face a mask of concentrated fury. Nearby, Tyne's foot archers sent volleys of glass-tipped darts. Where they struck flesh, riders convulsed as black lotus toxin coursed. Yet Tyrell numbers, once steadied, threatened to envelop. Sir Talbert's reserve horse broke through Nymeria's flank, hooves pounding. Nymeria's whip cracked an eye, sending Talbert's mount reeling sideways onto companion riders. She blew a horn, signal, then withdrew by coy curves, drawing pursuit into low ground where pits, dug in the night, waited. Tyrell knights tumbled into spiked trenches, Dornish crossbows rained bolts. Still the Rose host fought on. Hour by hour, the battle seesawed through trampled fennel and churned mud, the smell of crushed herbs mingling with gore. At midday, heavy drums echoed eastward. Both armies paused, swords dripping. On a low rise beyond the forest edge, banners of gold lion and crowned stag appeared, fewer than 1,000 men, but unmistakably the royal household guard, under Sir Adem Marbrand, rushing from the capital. Oberyn spat. Lions scavengers, too late for the meat, they still want bones. The shimmer of plate on fresh destriers unnerved weary soldiers. Tyrell horns rallied around Marbrand to strike Dornish rear. Oberyn gathered her commanders. We cannot face new reserves front and back, Sir Daeron warned. We must disengage. Oberyn looked toward King's Landing's faint outline on horizon haze. So close. Yet to cling here risked annihilation. To fall back ceded the race. Tiny touched her wrist. A snake that strikes stone loses fangs. We coil back, then strike again at a softer throat. Oberyn's shoulders tensed, then eased. She signaled retreat horns. Dornish forces formed staggered echelons, backing through felled trees, while crossbows covered withdrawal. Tyrells cheered, hollow relief, their dead carpeted field in rose-stamped surcoats. Marbrand pursued only until arrows pricked his banner, then dug in, unwilling to risk stretched lines. Under cover of evening rain, Oberyn's host slipped southeast toward the Blackwater's marshy headwaters. From there, a night march might still bring them to the city walls ahead of Tyrell foot, but exhaustion shadowed every horse. One misstep could break columns. That night, Oberyn climbed a hillock, looking north where campfires of both foes flickered. She whispered to the wind, "Father, guide our spears." She thought she heard the wind answer, hissing through grass like a viper's promise. Tone. In Sunspear, Ilaria received Oberyn's raven by moonlight. She read the terse lines, battle drawn, route diverted, hearts unbroken, and pressed quill to reply, the dragon prepares sail. Hold faith. Dawn follows every longest night. She sealed it, then turned to Prince Doran, seated in wheelchair gazing at an astrolabe. Obara bleeds, but stands, she said. Soon they will need food. Ships must break the red wine blockade or land south of the Blackwater. Doran studied the spinning rings of the astrolabe, each etched with constellations. Ariane has reached Mir. The Golden Company will march, though they no longer fly Blackfire. Another blade in the dark. Namizandoba. He touched a bronze sphere inlaid with rubies, the peppering star of Nymeros, patron of vengeance and roadways. All threads draw to King's Landing's knot. If knots cannot untie, they sever. Elaria placed her hand over his, and when the severing's done, then, he said softly, peace. On our terms. A peace of any sort seemed distant to those huddled in King's Landings, sept vaults, as bells tolled for evening prayer. Among them, a ragged septon, known only as Orland, preached that the seven had turned faces from the Lannisters. His flock listened wide-eyed. When gold cloaks arrived to disperse them, murmurs turned to jeers, jeers to stones. One cloak fell under a cobble, bleeding out while crowds roared. Riots threatened to flare anew. Varys watched from the shade of a colonnade, sighing. The realm, he mused, teetered between serpents and lions, dragons and stags, and always the spiders danced unseen. He fingered a message tube newly arrived from Pentos. The Queen sails. Another thread drew. He turned to a plump stable boy lurking nearby. Child, run to the granaries. Tell them spiders' silk loosens tonight. Bread must flow free to every hungry mouth, or the city falls by sunrise. The boy ran. Varys smiled faintly. Sometimes threads cut, sometimes they weave. On the narrow sea, Daenerys' fleet met stiff eastern winds, but pressed westward. On Silverwind's prow, the queen stood sleepless, thoughts as restless as waves. Behind her, Barristan had arranged council. Dario, Grey Worm, old graces, but tonight she dismissed them. The moon carved a path upon the sea. She wondered if moons in Westerosi's sky looked different. When next she saw that land, would ghosts of Ilias' children watch? Aurora, overhead, Drogon spiraled, wings threshing air. He landed upon the aft castle with a deck-shuddering crunch, folding black-red pinions. Sailors cowered. Daenerys strode toward him. He bowed ridged head. She placed palm to warm scales. Soon, she promised. Though whether to him or to herself, she could not tell. Very soon now, the stars wheeled on. At horizon's edge, faint pulses of candlelight flickered. Ships, perhaps. Islands, maybe illusions born of longing. Whatever they were, they beckoned forward, toward a realm in turmoil, awaiting final player upon its stage. Daenerys whispered a word in Valyrian. One, fire stirred. The fleet glided on. We imtuali unwaste tobis trusty. And so night deepened across sea and plain, mountain and city. In every quarter hearts pounded, some in fear, some in fury, all in expectation. On morrow's rising sun depended fates of houses, of kingdoms, of dreams etched in prophecy and blood. Spears glimmered, swords sharpened, sails billowed. Rumors sprouted like mushrooms, black and poisonous. Above them all the moon carved its silent arc, white and watchful. The seven kingdoms held breath. Dawn would not delay. The first glimmers of dawn diluted the eastern sky to pewter, blanching the battlefield haze that clung about Felwood. Beyond the broken pines, A thrumming hush reigned, an almost reverent silence after the night's frantic preparation. Oberyn stood bareheaded on a low stony rise, arms folded against the chill that still lingered in spite of summer, and watched the clouds absorb coral streaks. Somewhere downslope, her captains were rousting riders, tightening girths, checking the leather caps that muffled the jangling of harness rings. A host needed hours to form, but this morning every man and woman in the Dornish vanguard moved as though a common pulse beat in their veins, jarring them awake before trumpets. The smell of boiled oats drifted from cook fires already kicked apart. The only other scent was smoke from late-kindled torches, acrid but comforting. It masked the iron tang of yesterday's deaths and gave the illusion the air itself still belonged to the living. She thought of Storm's End's granite drum tower, of Lord Selwyn cradling his gashed wrist while Tynian bound it tight, of Brian's blue gaze across a ring of spears, and she tasted both victory and absence in the same breath. Victory was a fleeting thing. Already it felt like a distant torch flickering behind her. Absence lingered. Oberyn's laughter should have echoed among her ranks, rallying them with a bawdy joke, calling them fearless fools and brave brothers. Instead, only the creak of saddles and the rustle of pikes and canvas sleeves met her ears. Nymeria's arrival was heralded by the soft swish of her whip, coiling over a gloved palm. She materialized from fog like a wraith wrapped in sable, eyes quicksilver bright. "Scouts from the Hook," she announced, voice pitched low as if the sleeping trees themselves might listen. "Reed wine galleys cripple. Our longships hold the river mouth. No new lion banners sighted sailing south. We still have the water road if the road of earth fails." "No, fin. Donnelly Besildie." Oberyn nodded, calculating. "Tyrell sits 3 leagues behind, licking wounds, waiting for his main foot to dress ranks. He'll march by mid-morning. By midday, he'll try our rear. We can't outrun heavy rose armor, but we can slip past the capital's walls before he knows which gate we choose." "We'll favor the tumble down along Mud Gate?" Nymeria asked, tracing a path in the air. "Too obvious," Oberyn muttered. "And the Blackwater's banks will be thick with crossbow pits after their riot scares. I mean to pierce at the gate of the gods, old stones bastions half crumbled since Robert's folly. If we sweep in on a surge of small folk, cloaks wrapped, banners furled, we might flood a courtyard before they recall siegecraft." Nymeria's brows arched. "And once inside, we become sand. We find the mountain, if he truly yet breathes. We find Tywin, Cersei, every root of the tree that felled our father. We strike, then let the city burn down its own rot. Muir?" Nymeria's smile curved like a sickle moon. "Tyena says poison sings sweetest in crowded places. She'll have her choir." Oberyn turned as Tyena appeared, boot steps silent on damp needles, her white cloak blotched with gray where mist condensed. She carried 2 small wicker cages draped in black cloth. Oberyn did not need to ask what chittered inside. One rustle told her. The dust-laced spiders of Vaith were near mindless but followed heat and moved in swarms. Loosed in a festival crowd outside the Great Sept, they might spur panic faster than fire. Tyena shrugged at Oberyn's glance. "I bring sermons," she said. "The queen in the Sept will not enjoy new worshippers." Oberyn grunted and strode down the slope toward her horse. Under her breath, half prayer, half oath, she breathed, "Father, lend my spear the same mercy your poison lent the mountain. Let it kill what must die, nothing more." She mounted, spear butt thunking in its cup, and raised a hand. Horns moaned once, long and low, like a desert djinn waking. Dornish columns began to slither out of timber-filtered dawn, hooves muffled in moss, cloaks drawn tight to mask white sun and spear sigils. 20 minutes later, only trampled grass and the smoldering remains of last night's watchfires marked their staging ground. Behind them, the forest recovered its hush, indifferent. On the King's Road ahead, 500 yards of churned mud separated enemy and prey. Along that ribbon, First Light now picked out the gilded knots atop Tyrell lances, still grounded. Tents flapped where men struggled into breastplates. A dozen knights mounted to ride pickets found nothing but crow-picked dead and gray fog. They cast uneasy eyes south, wondering if vipers could vanish into air. Mace Tyrell's pavilion spilled lamplight as the Lord of Highgarden thrust himself into padded cuisses. Rain-soaked green satin clung to his bulk. "Where in seven hells did they go?" he bellowed, voice cracked. They were but a mile yes to sunset. Sir Garland steadied him with a firm hand. "They slipped east, my lord, cunning as stepstone smugglers, still within striking. We push now, catch them upon the city's flank. Nalyam, Wadaanshi, Yundania." Mace looked beyond open flap to the mass of infantry still aligning. "Push? Half my levies limp, the other half starved. Yet yes, push we must." His cheeks puffed as if each word cost coin. "Ready, heralds, we march. The rose will bloom upon Egon's hill by nightfall." Behind him, Lady Olenna sat in a folding camp chair, stabbing her knitting needles like daggers. "Bloom," she echoed dryly. "Or bleed manure try." She reached for her cane, ignored her son's offered hand, and swept from the tent, calling orderlies to fetch the damnable goat cheese the hosts would not shut up about. If men were to tramp into viper pits, at least they'd die with bellies lined. Southeast, in the marsh, flats west of the Blackwater headwaters, Oberyn's advance closed the last leg. Rills of fog ribboned the reeds, frogs croaked. Dragonflies the size of thumbs darted among yellow irises. Hard riding here would founder horses, so she dismounted, leading her courser by the cheek strap, stepping on hummocks like invisible stepping stones. The column strung out, but discipline held. Dornishmen were sandrats and cliff goats, used to broken ground. Mid-morn sun finally tore through rag cloud, painting domes and towers in the near distance with a dull, unhealthy glow. King's Landing rose across a shimmering plain, walls mottled like old parchment, tiled roofs bristling around the red keep spines. Even from here, Oberyn smelled the city. Salt, human sweat, tallow, a faint tang of rotting fish. It reminded her of the flesh markets in Volantis, but fouler. A carcass washed too long on a river's muddy bank. She called a halt beneath a clump of twisted alders. Couriers loped up, breath pluming. One bore news from the fleet blockading the mouth. Taroshi and Laseni privateers had slipped chains last night to raid the Dornish supply cogs east of Driftmark. 3 transports burned before Martell galleys could intercede. Grain lost, water lost. Oberyn's jaw tightened. No turning back. She sent the courier with reply. "Break the Taroshi, or strand them on the Claw Isle rocks. I care not which, but burn every sail that threatens my spears." Then she turned to Nymeria. "We pierce the gate of the gods by afternoon bell. Assemble half the foot in cloaks of Riverland brown." "What of the sisters' spiders?" Nymeria asked. "Release them just short of the Sept Square. Panic will draw guards away from the gatehouse." She rubbed gritty eyes. "If Taiye mislikes the risk to innocence, remind her any mother trampled in the crush owes her hurt to the mountain first." Taiye, listening, merely unlaced the cloth covers and blew a kiss to whatever monstrosities scuttled within. The last leagues melted beneath hooves. By the 3rd hour of day, thousands of small folk pressed at the gate of the gods. A tide of gray faces and patched cloaks and wagons piled with turnip sacks. Gold cloaks lined the barbican, nervous, their recent inductions unsteady and ill-fitting mail. A rumor had spread at dawn that Queen Cersei meant to seal the city, no matter who starved outside. Every man with a lame sheep or an extra daughter to sell crammed forward, hoping for one last entry before decree. Amid that press moved 200 disguised Dornish outriders in dun cloaks, their spears broken to staves, swords hidden in false bottoms of grain carts. A horn brayed from the parapet, gates closing. Panic rippled. Oberyn, riding under a wagon tarp beside a toothless crone, tensed at the row of crossbowmen leveling into the crowd. If bolts loosed, subterfuge would fail. She breathed once, shallow, tasted the sour tang of straw mold. Then above, on the wall walk, a rookery guard screamed and toppled, neck purple with spider venom, limbs twitching. Another stumbled, swatting at a cluster of tiny midnight shapes pouring from a sack. Crossbow bolts shot wild, embedding timber. A third man flailed, trying to stamp spiders that scurried under greaves. Someone yelled, "Sorcery!" at the top of lungs. The gate captain whirled, abandoning crowd control to rush toward the rookery ladder. Half his men followed. Oberyn's pulse kicked. Taine's choir sang perfect. From deep in the mob rose a woman's shrill cry, fear real and unscripted. Spiders had found the press as well. In that surge, Oberyn flicked her hood aside, whistled thrice. Dornish infiltrators shoved forward, mirroring terrified commoners, but at the last second, they spun, burying knives in the backs of two distracted guards seizing windlass cranks. A hidden sapper smashed a clay jar of lamp oil at the wheel lock. Flame roared, cables snapped. The gate ground, jammed half open. Enough. Oberyn urged her courser under the portcullis, just as counterweights clanged. Inside the city proper, pandemonium spilled through Bailey and across wide cobbles. Market stalls upended, geese scattered. A woman dropped her infant and fainted. Oberyn dismounted, wrenched spear haft from cart false bottom, and drove point through the visor of the first sergeant, daring to draw steel. Nymeria appeared at her left, cloak gone, whip already blood-flecked. Taine ghosted at her right, daggers wet. More Dornish tumbled after them, shedding disguises, raising sun and spear banners that unfurled like sunrise in alley gloom. The gate of the gods belonged to DORNE. A horn blast from the inner curtain signaled alarm. Gold cloaks rallied, but command structure fractured. Half rushed to defend the great sept, swarmed by phantom spiders. Half pelted for the red keep. Between those halves, the Dornish wedge deeper. Rolling carts to block barrack doors, spiking hinges. Oberyn felt the city's pulse, each street a vein. She meant to lance the heart. South flanked to street of seeds, she ordered, voice carrying strangely calm. Break for Tanner's steps, then cut right to the city dungeons. The mountain cell lies beneath. She grabbed a wiry cell spear. Find me the dwarf, if he yet breathes. He knows the tunnels. Promise him. His weight in arbor wine. The cell spears saluted, vanished. Oberyn wheeled on Tiny. Your path, the sept. Find Cersei if she hides beneath altars. Spiders alone won't finish her. I have sermon yet, Taine replied, eyes luminous. She slunk away, dragging her cages. Nymeria jerked her chin at an alley. And me. Dock granaries. Secure bread. Oberyn gripped her sister's wrist. Lives depend on you. Nymeria squeezed back once, then melted into shadows. 10 silent spears in tow. Oberyn mounted again, spurred toward the street of flour, hooves clanging on cobbles. Ahead, blue-winged pigeons erupted from rooflines, as if the city exhaled creatures of flight in lieu of proper hope. Across the city, in Maegor's holdfast, Cersei jolted upright at the third horn call. Her mirror reflected wide eyes and a smear of coal not yet attended by handmaidens. Oberyn bustled through the antechamber clutching scrolls. Your Grace, the gate of the gods reports infiltration. Reports? Cersei barked. I hear the horns myself. She yanked a crimson gown over chemise, shoved feet into jeweled slippers. Where is Sir Meryn? rallying white cloaks at the bailey. Tommen, with the high septon since dawn worship, her face blanched. The sept might now be cursed ground. Oberyn saw the thought. I will dispatch the kettle blacks to retrieve him. Cersei seized his wrist with lacquered nails. You will escort me to the vault first. I want wildfire counts. My lady, move. They hurried along marbled corridors where panic had not yet seeped. Musicians practicing for midday feasts still tuned lutes until a page sprinted past shrieking, Dornish vipers! Lute strings twanged false, music cut off. A ripple through the palace. Tywin received news more coldly. Ser Kevan whispered in his ear while the hand sat at council table, surveying miniature blocks that represented garrisons. Tywin blinked once. Gate of the gods, he murmured. Improbable breach, reposition. He moved a lion block from the gate of steel to the breached barbican. Send Sir Adam's riders back at once. Tell Mace we hold inner walls until he flanks their rear. No, Kevin shifted. Our ravens to the Rose Host were shot down last night. They may not know. Tywin's nostrils flared. Then we ride for the sept ourselves if need be. The city will not fall to snakes after all I've built. He glanced at Pycelle. Rouse bannermen within 3 streets. Close every market. Any civilian resisting conscription loses tongue. Pycelle tottered off. Tywin bent over the map, hands steady. Yet a faint tremor still haunted a knuckle. He curled fist. On the street of silk, Varys doffed his perfumed skullcap and sighed at distant horns. Ah, the dance begins. He signaled 2 little birds. Fetch my traveling slippers. I expect corridors will soon run red. And I do dislike stains. He opened a hidden panel to a ventilation shaft and dropped in, rolling scrolls ahead. The realm would survive this day, or be reborn in another's image. Either way, Varys intended to crawl out the other side with secrets intact. Beneath the Red Keep's cliff, a skiff beached upon dark shale. Jaime and Tyrion scrambled up a goat path, cloaks drawn. They had intended to meet Illyrio's agent in a wine sink outside the city, but Horns changed calculus. We slip inside during chaos, Tyrion panted. Gold cloaks will be busy murdering their own confusion. Jaime pulled him along. If you're caught, sister will nail your head over the gate. If I'm caught, she'd sooner mount my entire body to a wall and invite crossbow practice. Tyrion smirked, though sweat rolled. But imagine Cersei's face when she realizes the dwarf she lost roams free under her nose, while snakes bite her ankles. They reached an old sally door, half collapsed by wildfire during Stannis' assault, years before. Jaime eased stones, revealing a crawl space. Tyrion squeezed first, muttering about masonry's indelicate affection. They vanished into gloom toward forgotten wine cellars. Atop Aegon's Hill, the great sept courtyard lay in pandemonium. Hundreds of pilgrims had gathered for Tommen's blessing. Now they scrambled from skittering black spiders, streaming down marble steps. Some swatted with prayer scrolls, others trampled neighbors. A septa toppled over brazier, spilling glowing coals into a knot of novices. Robes ignited bright orange. Screams piled upon screams. Tiny sand threaded through chaos like a dancer. White cloaks swirling untouched by soot. She flicked small darts tipped with sweet sleep into shoulders of vexed gold cloaks one by one. Each guard sagged to knees, eyelids fluttering shut. Tyene caught a falling helm, set it gently aside, and stepped on without breaking rhythm. The High Septon's bulk appeared at the top of the gilded stair. Mouth a perfect O Tommen clung to his sleeve, wide-eyed kitten amidst lions. Tyene paused at the foot of the stair, gaze fixing on the boy king. So small, she thought, to wear a crown heavier than iron. She lifted hand in placid greeting. A king's guard, Sir Boros. lurched forward, sword half drawn. Tiny swayed aside, catching his wrist with delicate fingers. She kissed his knuckles, whispering, "Sleep," as her dagger found the joint under elbow. Cerberus stiffened, mouth working, then collapsed. Tiny stepped over him, continuing upward in measured grace. High Septon spat phrase after pious phrase, voice cracking. "Halt! Abomination! This is hallowed." Tiny reached him, pressed one gentle palm to his chest. Her other hand flicked, and a pinprick of the stranger's kiss landed upon the fat man's neck. His words slurred. He sagged sideways, robes billowing. Tiny steadied Tommen before he toppled with the Septon. The boy king stared up into turquoise eyes framed by flaxen lashes. "Go," she said softly, pushing him toward the nave doors. "Find your lion, mother." He fled, stumbling, tears shining. Tiny allowed herself a breath. 2 children was not Oberyn's way, nor theirs. The mountain was not a child. Behind the altar, the Sept's treasury vault door loomed. Bronze. Rune edge. Tiny removed 2 crystalline vials from belt. She poured them into the keyhole. They hissed, etched smoke. Metal groaned. She drew both blades and waited. Inside the vault nestled ledgers that tracked Lannister coin and Tyrell tithes. More importantly, it guarded the Septon's secret letters. One from Cersei promising donations. One from Tywin threatening ruin. Tiny desired neither. She desired wildfire jars rumored kept here since Eris, confiscated but not destroyed. 1 jar could cremate a lion. 5 could rent a keep. As fumes cleared, the hinge gave. Tiny stepped into green-lit gloom. The pale radiance of trapped pyromancer flame. Licking glass, she smiled. Knives flashed. Seals broke. Across the city, Oberyn's band skidded into the black cell's corridor, just as a squad of gold cloaks dragged a raving, one-armed sellsword out for questioning. Oberyn speared the front man clean through mail, ripped back, flung butt to club the next. Her fighters, fan-shaped around her. 2 minutes later, only echoes and blood remained. She pushed deeper, following recalled directions from rumors. Down second stair, left at dripping arch, 3rd cell on right. Torches guttered. At the iron door, a news surprise awaited. Lock already pried, door ajar. Inside the straw-strewn gloom, shackles hung empty. Oberyn cursed. Diomozimi, Nodorboda desert, abt, win, uksh, wah. Little lions fled. A laugh answered from behind. She spun. Jaime Lannister leaned against the damp wall, torch in golden hand, eyes wary but almost amused. Tyrion lurked beside, rubbing wrists. "I prefer," kindly escorted himself out, the dwarf said. He eyed Oberyn's spear. "But I've learned semantics seldom persuade a lady holding a pointy stick." Oberyn's nostrils flared. She leveled spear under his chin. "You are worth more to me than to any queen above us. Where does the mountain lie?" Tyrion swallowed. "Our tower infirmary. Septime Maester Anella claims the creature still breathes, though the Maester insists it is only reflex twitches." "Why?" She jabbed just enough to pluck a drop of blood from his throat. "Lead me." Jaime stepped in, steel rasping free. "You will not spear my brother." "In time," she hissed. "First, the mountain that crushed my father." Tyrion raised hands. "I take you. Do I keep breathing long enough to taste a bottle of red?" "That depends how much red you spill along the way." A bargain unspoken was struck. Tyrion gestured. They moved off single file. Jaime rear guard, Oberyn poised between. Outside the infirmary's shuttered windows, dust danced in beams of noon light. Within, Gregor Clegan's ruined carcass lay strapped to a wooden slab, thick torso bandaged, head swathed save for mouth hole, where labored breaths rasped. Pulse seeped green-gray, congealing. Oberyn hovered, notes in hand. A caged raven gurgled on a perch, bred to mimic words. It croaked, vengeance on loop, result of Oberyn's coaxed experiment. Footsteps clanged. Oberyn looked up as Oberyn barreled through behind the Lannister brothers. He did not flinch when her spear speared forward, stopping an inch shy of his chest. "You may take him," Oberyn said, almost cheerful. "A subject expires. I find another." Tyrion grimaced at the sight of Clegane. "7. Save me," he muttered. Oberyn advanced to the slab. She studied the mountain's face, skin waxen, lips cracked, eyes rolled back showing jaundiced whites. He stank of death withheld. She planted spear butt, reached to her hip for a pouch, opened it. Inside gleamed a scorpion stinger in resin. She addressed the unconscious giant. "Prince Oberyn's venom left you half dead. Mine will finish the journey." "Mo, wait." She placed the stinger upon his chest, pressed until skin parted. Gregor's body convulsed, muscles bulging veins. A hollow wheeze tore the bandages. Then stillness, absolute. Oberyn closed her eyes. When she opened them, her gaze burned with satisfaction so fierce, even Jaime stepped back. "It is done," she whispered. Tyrion cleared throat. Now the small matter of escaping a keep crawling with lions. Oberyn swept bloody braid behind shoulder. "We have tunnels. The Spear Sisters will clear one path. The dwarf knows another. Choose." Jaime's mouth tightened. "My path leads to Tommen." Tyrion touched his arm. "And mine away from Cersei." Oberyn nodded once. "Split then, but remember, if I die pursuing the lioness, Dorne will cry for your skulls in payment. We live with that risk." Tyrion sighed. They parted. Oberyn stalking upward toward the royal quarters with 2 spears, Jaime downward hunting Tommen. Tyrion slipping into a "why is it doing so?" corridor bound for Varys' hidden stepstone. Echoes ricocheted like flung coins. News of breach reached Tywin just as he gathered a troop at the base of Aegon's high hill. A breathless runner gasped, "Mountain, dead for true." Dornish spear in the heart of the keep. Tywin's cool mask cracked, only for an eye blink. "Sound full retreat to Maker's Holdfast. We consolidate behind Dragonstone ramparts, bring every wildfire cache forward. If we burn half the city to root vipers, so be it." He meant it literally. Doom my green flame. His men scattered to enact the order. In the Sept's treasury, Tiny loaded 2 jars of wildfire into a padded satchel, teeth biting lip in concentration. One jar slipped. She caught it, heart skittering. Outside the Sept thundered with bootsteps. Queen's new burn men of the faith militant, helms emblazoned by stars, storming to quell what they deemed a demon. Tiny drew a breath, hefted satchel, whispered Father's credo, quick, clean, precise, and dove through a stained glass window in a shatter of colored light. She landed cat-like on the stone balcony, rolled, came up running, shards glistening in hair like rubies and sapphires. Below, commoners still fled the spider's scourge. She hopped the balustrade, dropped, tucked, hit cobbles, and vanished among them. Wildfire sloshing ominous at her hip, a sun-kissed specter out of prophecy. Beyond Lime Gate, thunder of hooves rose, Stannis' advance host racing along the shore road. Black stag banners snapping. Davos led first column, spyglass spotting smoke rising from Gate of the Gods. His voice rasped, "By the Father, the Vipers breach ahead of us." He ordered sails of the smaller transports to edge along river mouth, ready for beach landings inside bay. Stannis at his side showed no outward emotion. Yet knuckles whitened on reins. "The city is opened," he declared. "We carve our claim through the crack. But if dragons wheel above?" Davos asked, thinking of rumors. Stannis' eyes reflected gray water. "Then we prove which fire burns hotter, the Lord's or a dragon's." Above them in the high clouds, Drogon's silhouette traced lazy spirals ahead of the Queen's fleet. Barristan watched from the quarterdeck as Merry's oars dipped in unison. Every man aboard conscious they rode beneath a shadow that could consume. Daenerys rested palms on dragonbone rail, heart thundering not with fear, but with anticipation, so strong it tasted of copper. Into the afternoon, warring horns inside King's Landing overlapped with tolling bells and crackle of sporadic fires. Small folk barricaded doors, prayed to whichever god seemed loudest. Spiders still creeped, arrows still loosed. Somewhere a wildfire jar shattered, searing 4 city watchmen to screaming pillars of green. By dusk, the red wine survivors attempted one final breakout, only to find Dornish galleys north and Stannis' Black Fleet south. Between hammer and anvil they struck reef, hulls splintering, men leaping to sharkskin dart. Paxter Redwine, clothes smoldering, surrendered his sword to a Lysani corsair flying Martell pennant. The corsair laughed, tossed the sword overboard, and offered wine. Pax made by sea is seldom gentle. That night the moon rose full, a pale galleon caught in cloud rigging. On the ruins of the Gate of the Gods flew twin banners, the sun and spear of Nymeros Martell, and, smaller, dark against torchlight, the crowned stag of Storm's End, hung there by an unknown hand, but left untouched by Dornish sentries, who perhaps mistook it for a snarling goat. Symbol enough to frighten watchers on inner walls. Surety that 2 enemies stood allied. Inside the Red Keep, Tywin walked alone down a corridor lined with captured blades from Egan's foes, a hall that once awed him, but tonight felt like a mocking gauntlet. Echoes followed like footsteps of ghosts. He paused before a narrow window, saw faint orange weaving through city streets, fire from market stalls, maybe torches, maybe wildfire. Hard to tell. Behind him an assassin might lurk, spear half ready, or a son with crossbow, or perhaps only the wind through arrow slits. He inhaled, slow, steady, then continued toward the council chamber where a final line of men worked to ready cauldrons of oil for an inner ward defense. Outside the chamber doors, Varys appeared as if sprung from cracks in tile. Tywin's nostrils flared at the spider's suddenness. "Lord Hand," Varys murmured. "News flows faster than blood. Daenerys Targaryen sails within a daylight. Stannis Baratheon's stag gallops at our southern flank, and Dorne fills our halls. I wonder, can even you count so many fronts?" Tywin's gaze flamed. "Do not presume to counsel, eunuch. Place your whispers where fire won't burn them." Varys bowed, silk sleeves whispering. "As you command. The whispers seldom burn, my lord. They merely smolder until towers crack." He drifted off. Tywin watched, fingers tight behind back. The tremor again seized one knuckle. He clenched fist until it stopped. Up in a deserted turret, Marguerite Tyrell gazed northwest, handmaids flanking. Her lips moved silently, prayer for the host bearing her family arms, breath to protect husband king she barely knew, though rumors put him lost amid horns. A sudden gout of green-tinged fire near the Gate of the Gods made her flinch. She wondered which color defined loyalty anymore, the green of her house or the green of alchemist's hell. Down in the tunnels of the wine cellars, Tyrion and Varys reunited. The dwarf held a stolen lantern and a skin of Dornish red. "Cities aflame," he said, "yet we still inhabit its bowels. Appropriate." He drank. Varys produced parchment. A barge prepared by Illyrio stands at the river mouth, safest to flee with the Queen's fleet arrival. Tyrion snorted. Why flee when chaos could crown a dwarf? Let's watch a while first. I'd like a front row seat to father's empire cracking. He clinked wine. Perhaps fetch cheese? Barry's blinked, faint smile curving. Very well, but front row seats often catch shrapnel. Tyrion toasted. I'm short. Shrapnel flies over me. The hour crept toward midnight. On the docks ward, Nymeria commanded her archers to torch lighters. Fire arrows arced high, igniting tarred barges moored for Tyrell grain. Flames rippled along water, hemming in any ship still loyal to the Lion. Fishermen hid under wharves, praying to river lords they barely knew. Prayer answered only by cinderfall. At the Sept Square, Tiny set down her satchel at a marble plinth, once bearing Baelor's likeness. Statue toppled since Joffrey's whim. She withdrew a single wildfire jar, placed it at base of the shattered crown. With chalk, she drew Oberyn's sigil on cracked stone. Then she stepped back, drew loosed braid behind ear, struck iron to flint. Sparks danced but guttered, wind whistled. She tried again. Spark, flame, wick on the jar caught. Green tongues licked. She turned, melted into crowd as the jar bloomed huge. A green lotus of flame that swallowed the broken king and hurled emerald glare sky high. The blast shook shutters across half the city, rattled ravens from the rookery, woke the lion in his council chamber. Tywin steadied himself against the map table as dust sifted from groin vaults. In the jolt, his lead soldiers toppled, scattered amongst territories like children's toys. He righted one, then another, then gave up. Finally, even Tywin Lannister accepted a truth. On this night, maps no longer obeyed their makers. In the harbor, the thunder woke Drogon. He roared across black water, and the city quailed at the new note in chaos. A sound like the end of legends and the birth of older ones. On the prow of the silver wind, Daenerys lifted her face to flaming sky, mouth shaping a single syllable in High Valyrian, Dracarys. The fleet surged, oars churning. Overhead, Drogon banked, then dove towards the Red Keep's ramparts, a shadow bleeding scarlet at his throat. Oberyn, on the Street of Seeds, felt the air heat in her lungs, heard the hush that fell as citizens looked upward. She lifted spear in salute. Father's vengeance had called many blades, but dragons were vengeance made divine. She whispered to the darkening heavens, may even the lion learn awe. Dinosaurs reared at the sight of black wings. He steadied the beast, eyes reflecting flame. Melisandre beside him murmured, "The Lord's herald." Stannis did not answer. He watched and weighed as ever, soldier first even before prophecy. Tyrell's host on the King's Road halted in horror as green light glared over distant walls. Men muttered of Mad King's pyres. Mace shouted for march, but fear markets well, and merchants of dread had begun haggling already. Hamlets as far as Hayford awoke to the glow, thinking dawn come early. Mothers clutched children, old men spoke of doom of Valyria. Some smiled, expecting Lannister retribution. Elsewhere, somewhere deep in Harrenhal's cracks, cackles echoed. Walder Frey felt tremor in gnarled knees and wondered if it were gout or omen. The night of one realm and the dawning of another pinched together in those blazing seconds. History's hinge squealing loud enough to drown a million heartbeats. Green fire painted every blade, spider, horn, eye. Then from Dragonstone walls Stannis' artillery answered. A single catapult stone trailing oily rag flame, arced high and smashed upon the Red Keep's lower wall, shattering parapet. Two wars converged. Oberyn inhaled the thick, sweet smell of burning pitch and alchemist compound, mixed with the iron perfume of her own sweat and blood. She realized she was smiling with a terrifying serenity, as though each terrible note in the symphony aligned to perfect chord. Roses, lions, stags, dragons, all threads she and her sisters had tugged were now woven into the tapestry of a single roaring moment. And somewhere, Spirit of the Viper danced barefoot among tongues of green, laughing. She raised her spear high in salute to that ghost, to her sisters, to every soul crushed under a mailed fist. Around her, the Dornishmen echoed the gesture. In the eerie emerald wash they looked like statues carved of jade, spears glinting gold. Then, as if the city itself sighed, the glow dimmed to flickers, and an enormous silence followed. A silence so huge Obara felt small again. Just a daughter missing her father. Into that silence rolled the deep boom of distant waves, the clack of hooves in a far alley, a baby's wail, and faint but growing louder, the measured clatter of armored boots, the first rank of Tyrell reinforcements finally at the broken gate, roses teetering on the edge of Wildfire's shadow. Obara gripped her spear anew. Vengeance tasted sweet, but duty remained. She turned her mount toward the approaching thunder, ready to measure Rose Steel against Snakefang once more. Somewhere overhead, Drogon's roar echoed, promising dawn would break blood red.